Hello and welcome back to the Sketchpad pod. I'm Alicia and today I'm going to be talking through some ideas that I've been thinking about when it comes to making and consuming art at home. For those of you that don't know me, I am an art student. I'm currently doing a degree in fine art and I have spent the last 10 weeks of lockdown trying to make art from home, and so I've been thinking about the sort of techniques or the different things I've been doing and how that might help someone who just wants to be making or experimenting with art at home normally, and also people who might be wondering about how they can find inspiration or learn more about art and art history. So that's the plan. If you're interested, keep watching and let's get on with the video. So my first tip number one, is to make art little and often. It can be quite scary when you're first making art to think that you have to set aside this large chunk of your time for a really big project, and you have to know exactly what you want to do, and you have to have all the right equipment, the right paints, the right canvas, etc. And that's really not true. Even if you just have a pencil and a piece of paper, that's enough to get you started. It's really great if you can try and draw maybe every day or every other day and just experiment with drawing different things. I always like drawing my parents or my family members when they are sitting on the sofas, maybe watching TV or reading a book, because they are great sitters, they're really nice and still, and it's a great chance to practice your figure drawing skills. Another thing can be going out on a walk and taking photos that you can then draw from later, or even if it's a nice day, go find a nice sunny spot and try and draw a landscape. That's always an interesting thing to do. I've also been using digital drawing apps to help me. So my tip number two would be to make use of your technology. There are so many different art apps out there. You can find kind of colouring book style, fill in the blank type apps, or you can go for more illustrative digital drawing apps. The app that I use at the moment is called Adobe Sketch, and it's really simple, really easy to use. I am not a great digital artist. There are some amazing digital artists out there and you can create really realistic artworks. One of the great things about digital art is that you can use a photo and you can put it underneath the layer of your drawing so that you can draw over the top, and it makes it a lot easier when you're starting, so that you don't have to worry about proportions and making sure everything is to size or that your perspective is correct. Tip number three would be to make your own sketchbook. A sketchbook is a great tool to have as an artist. It's somewhere that you can put all of your work and keep it in one place, and you can use a sketchbook to jot down ideas, to collage things, to put in inspiration, and to also have your work in there as well. You can just put anything you're thinking about down onto paper and it's a record and it's all there in one place. But you don't necessarily have to buy a sketchbook. There are some really good tutorials out there at the moment on folding origami sketchbooks, where you take a large piece of paper and you fold it down into a smaller sketchbook. That could be a really fun activity, and then you could practice trying to fill up that sketchbook within a certain time frame. Or you can literally just take some sheets of paper, fold them in half and staple them or hole punch them from the side. Honor and I on this channel recently did some videos where we made our own sketchbooks full of art that brings us comfort, and that's a really good example of how you can make a sketchbook, so definitely go check those videos out after this. Tip number four is to create an archive of images. So this goes along with the idea of making a sketchbook or finding inspiration for what you can use to then make pieces of art. It can seem daunting to know where to start, but art can really be about anything you like. So if there's a particular topic that you're interested in, there's a news article that you read, or there's a really nice flower that you see while you're out walking, photograph it and take all of those photos and put them in a folder on your computer, or you can print them out and make a physical archive of those images. You probably got a whole load of images on your Instagram that could be a great source of inspiration. An archive can also be other things like screenshots, conversations, it can be notes, it can be quotes from people. Think really broad. Inspiration for art doesn't just have to be a photo. It could be an object, a letter, or a piece of writing, a poem. It's interesting to see how images that you take and different forms of documentation can come together to give you different ideas for how to make work, or what you want to make your work on. Tip number 5 is using objects and everyday resources. So you don't have to have the technically correct art resources. Many artists use obscure or weird or like different techniques to make their art, and some artists just use what they have around them in the house, and that's definitely what you can do. My suggestions would be to look in your trash, think about what foods or spices that you could use, it's like pigments. Think about what natural resources, so flowers, soil, stones, shells that you might have in your garden or that you might find while you're on a walk. Do you have any old objects, any family heirlooms, any old toys, any objects that are broken that you don't use and you could repurpose into an artwork? Do you have a family photo album? Do you have a photocopier? Do you have magazines or newspapers lying around? All of that can become material or inspiration for a work. Okay, and now tip number 6 is for trying to get your work out into the world, into the online sphere, into the marketplace, if that's what you want to call it. For some people, you won't want to show your art, or you're just doing it for yourself and it's just a personal hobby. That's totally fine. Art is a great therapeutic, meditative tool, and there is no saying that you have to share it or you have to use it as some sort of business or profiting gambit. But for those of you that do want to get your work out there, you might be an art student like me, one of the things I would say to look out for is open calls. These are often found on Instagram, on art websites, so galleries and museums, magazines. But I'd say Instagram is a great place to find the sort of smaller open calls that are looking for artists that are just emerging or in the beginning of making work. An open call is when a magazine or a zine or a gallery put out an advertisement for young artists or emerging artists or any sort of artist that they want to see work from, and it sometimes is based on a theme, or it might be based on a specific medium that they're looking for. So they might be looking for photographers, they might be looking for painters, they might be looking for writers. You can use these open calls and you can see if any of your work fits for them, or they can be a really nice source of inspiration. Definitely keep an eye out for those. If you're in a bit of a rut, maybe that'll inspire you to make some more art and then submit it for the open call, and you could get your work in a magazine, which would be really cool. Really cool, that's a terrible word, Alicia. Anyway. And then finally, tip number 7. I'm amalgamating a few different things into this, but basically it's looking for art inspiration or art information and art history out in the internet, in the social media sphere, out in the world, but staying at home. How can you learn more about art, and how can you access art from home? So here are my top recommendations, as it were, for where to find new art or to learn about different types of art. First off, I want to mention a couple of apps. One of my favourites at the moment is called Daily Art. It's a really simple app. It sends you a reminder once a day and it shows you a different piece of art each day, and it gives you an art historical synopsis of the work. So it tells you what the work is, who made it, when they made it, how they made it, why they made it. And it's great for trying to learn more about different art and different art styles. I really like the app because it's an international art app, so it has art from galleries all over the world that you might not be able to see anyway if we weren't at home. It's definitely a great virtual way of finding and learning about new art. Another app I would recommend is Google Arts and Culture. Google Arts and Culture has a lot of articles about different artworks or different styles of artwork, but it also has the 3D view where you can go into museums or galleries or exhibitions from all around the world. So they have mapped out and photographed all of these galleries, and so you can go back to your favourite gallery, or you can find a new gallery that you know nothing about, and you can visit and walk around them through the app, which is really cool. And then for TV/YouTube, I just want to mention Grace and Perry's Art Club, which is on Channel 4. It's just finished, but it was a series that Grace and Perry put on encouraging the public to make art during lockdown. It's done on a weekly theme by theme basis, and it shows all of the different ways that the public have been making art during this time. It shows Grace and Perry as well making his own work in his studio. I really like it because it's got all different abilities, different styles. You don't feel like you're being made to compare your art to anyone else's, because everyone else's is so unique and so different, and you realise that anyone can make art and it's not about it being technically correct or perfect. Another TV show I would recommend is The Great British Sewing Bee. Now, I have not finished watching this, so no spoilers in the comments please, but it is a great show if you are interested in sewing and craft. They bring in a group of amateur sewers and they ask them to do a series of sewing challenges each week to find this year's Great British Sewing connoisseur. It's really a fun watch, it's really nice and easy, but you can definitely get some inspiration for some home sewing that you might want to do. For YouTube, I love this channel. I've already talked about them and they inspired our Art That Brings Me Comfort videos that have just gone up. This is the art assignment. There is so much content over on the art assignment. It is a channel which is run by Sarah Erst Green, and she is an art historian, and so she talks about loads of different styles of artwork, different artists and their lives and how they made art, and she also talks to contemporary artists and current artists, and it also gives you different prompts or different ideas as to how to make art. It's really a great place to begin if you're trying to learn more about art history. Then I want to talk about podcasts. So my favourite art podcasts at the moment are the Art History Babes. Kind of in the title, they talk all about art history, but it's a group of women, of art historians. They're absolutely hilarious, so definitely check that out. Meet Me at the Museum is a audio tour of different museums, often including a celebrity or comedian and a guest that they bring along with them. It's a nice thing to listen to if you want to get to know that celebrity more, or if you particularly like that museum, but you can also try and visualise a museum or an artwork or a gallery that you've never even been to before, which is a really interesting exercise, and perhaps the way that you imagine it would be completely different to the way it actually is, but it's a really nice visual auditory experience. So my current favourite art podcast is Art Holes, and it's recorded by a man who has no background in art, no qualifications in art history, but just wanted to learn about these artists that he's heard about for years and doesn't really know what they did or why they did it. And so he does it on a artist by artist basis, and he spends several episodes going through their history and their life, and so it's really a dramatic tale of artists through history, but it's also very funny. So if you are interested in learning more about artists but not in a documentary, perhaps more dry traditional style of art history, this is definitely the podcast to check out. I'll quickly also mention that you can subscribe to email subscriptions from magazines or galleries, and they will send you information articles that you can read and watch. Some of the email subscriptions that I would recommend: the ICA, Institute of Contemporary Art, daily emails. If you're not someone who likes a daily email that's going to clog up your nicely organised emails, then maybe not, but they send you a lot of good content, and they also send you a different daily song. So if you're trying to expand your musical horizons, that's also a good one. And then two others that I can recommend are Art Monthly and eFlux. And finally, tip number 8 is to join an online art community. For starters, if you have other friends that are making art and you can message them or send them photos of your work, that's a great place to start. If you follow other artists on Instagram, that's also a great place to get inspiration. But there are actually groups online, often called art collectives, that you can get involved with. Or there might be people that are making online content like magazines that you can also join. And so my example for this, a personal shout out to the art collective that I am involved with, is GWAC. We are a 200 member strong art collective, and it's all based online. We produce magazines, blog posts, YouTube videos, a podcast. They have an Instagram as well. So it's a really great way to get to know other artists, other writers, musicians, photographers, filmmakers. I am so glad that I joined it. I've been part of GWAC for 3 years now, I think, and it's just been growing and growing. Definitely go check out GWAC or just search online art collectives, and I'm sure you'll find one that's right for you. And that is it for my 8 tips on making and consuming art at home. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has inspired you, and if you make any art, or if you are planning on starting to make art, please drop us a message over on our Instagram at the Sketchpad Pod. We would love to follow you and see what you're doing, and don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our other videos. Thanks for watching, speak to you soon.